Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a very great honor to be here. I would also like to thank you, President Hundo, and I heard that Mr. Valisidis already did that, so I can follow in his footsteps and just say thank you. When asked to do this presentation, the subject and the title was what is clarity in the judicial administration? And that left me pondering for quite some time, because what actually is clarity in judicial administration? And I found myself thinking that clarity is a very good word, and it's also very broad. It can encompass many, many different things. So clarity is a word. I think curiosity lays beneath that or under that. So curiosity about what is it I have to be clear about? What sort of clarity is it that I strive to achieve? So curiosity was sort of like a key word for me when pondering about what I should say and what would possibly interest you under that title. So what are the curiosity about what the basics are for reaching that clarity? Another word that popped into my mind was was consistency. It seems to me that you cannot have clarity if you don't have consistency. So consistency about how it is that you service the courts, or how it is that you render your decisions, or how it is that you act towards the people that you interact with when performing your duties. So consistency is sort of underlying, is a prerequisite for obtaining clarity. So that was my sort of third word with a C. And then came the last word with a C also, pondering about what clarity actually is. And that was courage. Because it takes courage to actually share what you find, to actually ask the questions that are not always nice to hear the answers to, but necessary if you want to promote clarity. So that left me the 4 C's: the clarity, the curiosity, the courage, and the consistency. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to call this session the 4 C's. And after that, I pictured myself all of a sudden being like in a rock band or something. And I thought, I can't really be pleasure, but not really relevant. So I couldn't call this session the 4 C's. It was too much of a rock band session. So I called it instead the elements of modern court administration. I thought that sort of sounded more professional. So coming back to the 4 C's, because these are the 4 words that I will sort of elaborate about the next 25 minutes. One thing to be curious about is what it is or how many cases that you actually deal with. And I would just like to, for the reference, to see how many of you act as judges. Can you please put up your hands? Thank you. And how many are occupied with communication? Good, half. So how many of you actually knows how many cases was put before your court last year? Very good. How many of you knows how many cases you concluded last year? Same amount. And it seems to me that the reason that I'm asking this is that if you want this curiosity, if you want to ask yourself what it is you have to be clear about, this is sort of like a prerequisite to be clear. So the curiosity about how many cases do I actually talk on behalf of if you work in communication, or work with if you are a judge? How many cases came in last year? How many cases did you end last year? So what about that? What does that tell us about the case handling time? Should you be curious about that? Yes, I think you should be curious about that, because it maybe sometimes it's a very good story and you actually concluded more cases than you had in. So you should celebrate and have some champagne. Other times, it's not a good story. There were more cases coming in that you actually could manage to end. Not such a good story, but a very important lesson. So your curiosity should also lead you to ask these questions. We do that in Denmark. We have, we call it the management information system, and that's sort of a good word, but it's not also a correct word, because we don't only share it with the management, we share it with everyone. So everyone should, in his own right or his own right, interest himself in these numbers, because they are sort of the foundation to provide clarity and to know what to work with. Another thing that we work with, building this awareness, building the curiosity sheets, is that we ask the professionals. We ask them, what do you think? What do you think about when you come to the court about the IT systems? Now, this is in many countries a very fine question to ask. In Denmark, I need to tell you, this is not a very pleasant question to ask, because the answer is not very pleasant. We are not forefront here. We are sort of the back in the class. We are working very hard to become digital, but we are not digital yet. So we are very analog. We struggle with getting the pieces and acts together. We have very big courses in the penal cases trying to use the screens. That makes a requirement that they are there in place, that there are screens to be used, like here, that there is a screen. If there's no screen, you can't use it. So we work a lot with securing the basis of having a good experience in court with respect to the IT systems. But we still ask the questions, because we still want to hear the answer. We also ask about the service of the court, the physical features of the court, the conducting of the meeting, the clarity in the decision, and the relevance with the case handling time. So we ask all these questions, and some of the questions turn out that people are very satisfied, and then we are happy. And some of the questions answers to the questions point to factors that we need to work with to create clarity. So if you don't know the answer to this question, you can't create the clarity. That's the point. So build awareness, ask questions to the professional would be one of my points also. Of course, you don't really only need to work with the professionals, although they are a very important group for you to work with, because they know you the best and they perform for you the most. But they are, of course, not the only ones, because at the end, you also need to know, what does the public think? And so we also ask the public, what do they think about us? And here you just see the sheet from 2016 about trust. And it's a very good thing to know. In this particular sheet, Denmark is relevantly good, so we are happy about that. But there are also things to work about in this respect. So there are also things to work about here. There are not a large, but there are a proportion of the people that are asked that said fairly bad or fairly good. So what is fairly good? Fairly good is satisfactory, yes. Are you very, very happy about it? No, because you need to work even harder to get it up in the forefront level. So I think the point here is ask also the public what they think. Building trust is also a two-way street, so you need to communicate with them, asking them, and you need to ask the people who did not have the most confidence in you, why not? Because doing that, you can come to work with specific elements. A couple of years ago, we talked to a social worker, and I'm now changing the subject a little bit, staying with the curiosity, but changing the subject a little bit. So a couple of years ago, we worked with a social worker, and his job was to accompany youngsters going to court. So his job was to take them from where they were, drive them into the courtroom, be with them during the court case, and take them back after the court case. So he obviously spoke a lot to the youngsters. And what he heard from some of the youngsters on his way to court with them was that they didn't really know what should happen. So they asked him, what's actually going to happen now? When we come to the court, what's going to happen? And he explained, okay, the court was this, and the structure was this. You have to rise for the judge, then you have to sit in the middle and give your testimony, and blah, blah, blah. So after the court case, they came to the court, everything happened, came back, and when they drove on the way back to where he lived, the youngster said to the social worker, "I'm sorry, could you tell me what just happened?" And that was sort of a wake-up call. He shared that story with us, and we listened to that story, and we decided this was not good. So we thought that was not how it should be, and we decided we wanted to make a short movie with the target group, specific target group to the youngsters that should go into our court. This movie, or this little film, was not for all of the Danish population. And it was not even for all of the people who should give testimony before the Danish courts. This movie was directed specifically towards youngsters. So they were the target group. And what we did was we asked some of the police officers who worked with youngsters. We asked also we have something we call children houses in Denmark, and we asked some of the social workers from the children houses, can you please help us in doing this? And can you also help us in finding youngsters who actually want to tell their story and share it? And with the aid of all these professionals within their system, we found specific youngsters who were willing to share their story. And we made a little movie about that. And they shared their experience, they told how nervous they were, they told how incriminating it could feel that they were asked the same questions 10 times, not only one time, not only 2 times, but 10 times. Many times from the police, many times from their defense attorney, again in court. They consistently, they were asked the same questions, and every time they sort of felt intimidated. So that was some key point to address in this movie, that this is how the system works. You should know this. This is not to intimidate you. It's not that we don't believe in you. It's just necessary to obtain justice. It's part of the system. You need to tell it many times. So this was one of our key messages in this film. Another key message was completely practical, because they were very insecure. Many of these people, they just want to appear good. They want to make the right impression. They want to talk the right way, and they don't know what's expected from them. So one key message was also just, dress as you usually do, but maybe, put off, if it's just take a shower, I get it. Comb your hair. If you have a tattoo, maybe cover it, or, just stuff, very, very practical level. Be direct. Know that you should sit in the middle of the room. Look at the judge, not the person asking you the question, but the judge. He's the one to address. Remove your hat. If you have some sort of political symbol that you really want to have put in the forefront, wait, do it another time, not during the court case. So that was another very key factor for us in this film, was how to manage their expectations and tell them what is expected of you. And so we finished the movie, and then we called all these professional people again, and we asked them, what do you think? Is this the answer to what your clients and what the youngsters that you work with, what they are nervous about, curious about, what they feel bad about? And they said yes. And then we asked them, can you please help us share the video? Because we can put it on our YouTube channel, and it's on our YouTube channel, and you're very welcome to go and look at it there. But if you are a youngster, you won't necessarily go to the YouTube channel of Denmark's courts, the Danish courts. So how do we actually disseminate this so that the information reaches the youngsters at the appropriate time? And obviously, learning from our social worker, the appropriate time is not driving in the taxi on its way to court. It's way, way, way before. So we needed the help of other people to disseminate this movie at the appropriate time. And they did, and they helped us, and it came out through them, so they sort of promoted it. And I think that helped tremendously in reaching that very narrow but very specific target group. Now, preparing this, I found this picture just so that you could see one picture from the movie. And you will see, you can't probably read this, but it's a very good lesson for me. And also thank you for inviting me just for that reason. Because 1 year ago it had almost 10,000 people who had watched it. And that was lots of people. But that was 1 year ago. So why have no one watched it since? So I think one lesson for me to take out of this information that to prepare this is also when I go back, I need to communicate to my communication people, please, can you get a hold of all the people that helped us disseminating this information because they have forgotten it. It has not become part of their ordinary life yet. They need to be brought into, again, knowledge about this movie existence. So, a completely different subject. How do you share information across the courts? Internally, within the courts of Denmark, we have established what we call knowledge groups. And this is knowledge groups that works with our 4 main areas of work: the estates area, the bailiff's court area, the civil courts area, and the penal cases. So these are our 4 areas. And this is the 4 sort of areas that we've asked the groups to work with. And this is judges, primarily judges who work and to share knowledge between themselves. And they also, by themselves, decide what matters they should talk about. And when they've decided, they write something about it, and then they publish it on our internal intranet. So the internal site that the public does not have access to, but we all employees of Denmark's court have access to. And it works very good, but there is also a very strong need for quality assessment. So it could be much faster if I just hired one judge and he would just write it all out, and it would be much faster and much cheaper. And why don't I do that? Because it wouldn't work. Because no one would use that information. Maybe it's different for you, but in Denmark it wouldn't work. This works because of the group. This works because the group decides when the quality is good enough. And if you are let me point out that the important thing of these 4 pictures is the sort of logo. Do you see the logo? And it's 4 different logos. They are very similar to each other, but you see the little dot in the top right side, the gray one? And then you move your eyes to the next, and then you see the yellow one, and the dot has moved to the yellow one. And the next one, dot has moved to the red one. Last one, dot has moved to the blue one. That obviously signifies the 4 different areas that they work in. And this stamp only gets on products that has been approved by the group. And I think that's sort of my communication message in this, that working with logos can actually also enhance the credibility of the products that you work with. And in this respect, the product is sharing of knowledge. It's made by judges, it's made by a group of judges, and it's approved by them, and once it has been approved, it gets this stamp. So that's from a sort of internal measure. Also internally, we work building clarity. We work building clarity out of consistency also. And I wanted to share this specific example with you. It goes within family law. It's an example of how you may work within your own court or across the courts. So it could work either way, just within the court, or it could work across the courts. So what was the problem here? The problem was that the praxis of family law was very different. Mind you, it was all within the law. There was nothing illegal about it. It was all within the law. Within the structure of the law, praxis had elaborated very different. Not the result of the specific case, but the way that you handle the case before the decision. So we thought that was maybe not clarity. So we wanted to work with clarity, and what did we do? We assembled one person from each court working with family law, and we asked them to work with telling each other, sharing with each other, how do you actually work conducting these cases? Or do you hear the child before rendering your decision? What time at the hearing do you actually do it? Before the hearing? At the hearing? Do you use child experts? Do you always conduct the main negotiation, or only in some cases? Do you use mediation, alternative dispute resolution, or not? These were the 4 questions that we asked. And we asked them because we sort of knew that the answer was very different from even within the court, from judge to judge, but also across the judges and across the courts of Denmark. And they found out all these questions to this, and they laid out now a common guidance to all courts. So the result of this discussion and debate, and I think it was 8 meetings in the network, as a result of that, they created a guidance. And this guidance is now in a hearing process, because we also, primarily to secure that all judges that has an opinion about this has had the chance also to enter into force with this opinion. So that's part of the thing about the hearing, and a very important part. Another also important part is, what about the attorneys actually handling these type of cases? Should they not be heard? And what about the child experts that are used? Should they not be heard? So the sort of professionals also dealing with these cases are also heard. So this is where the guidance is right now. And I hope in about maybe 1 year from now, it will be settled, and it will not be a draft any longer. And my hope is that we will have moved from 24 plus, because the reason that it's 24 is there's 24 district courts in Denmark. And the reason that I put a plus in there is each court could easily have 2 or 3 various variations on how to deal with these cases. So 24 plus cases, way of dealing with cases, is my hope that we will have reduced to 4. Another project that we have worked with is being curious about how you conduct yourself in court. And we have now had, it's a pilot, it's 1 court in Denmark, and they have said it to themselves. They are the ones who proposed this. I didn't come and enforce this on them, because I don't think it would have worked if I did. So they came and said, can we work with that? And I said, yes. Absolutely, yes. And we found a coach, and we found a communication trainer, and they were observant and an expert in rhetorics, in language, the knowledge of language. And they worked with the language. So they observed the people during the court case, and they gave them feedback after the court case. And they also sometimes, a colleague stepped in observing a court case from another judge, giving feedback afterwards. They are very, very happy with this. It gives them enormous feedback, and it gives them very specific instruments to work with afterwards. Communication strategy is obviously very important in clarity. And for this purpose, I just want you to focus on number 3. One of our goals is to ensure contemporary and understandable letters and adjudications in our decisions. And this is one of our goals. We have more, but for this purpose, just this. Now, working with this, I think you need to be very practical also. So we have contemplated for a long time, what does that mean in practice? How long should your sentences be? Should they be below 10 words before you put a punctuation? Could it be between 10 and 15 words? Could it be up to 20 words? Could it be 30 words? Now, that question obviously does not have one answer. So in our case, I will leave it to you to discuss and ponder with yourselves what is the answer for you in your language and in your facility to that question? For us, it's 15 to 18. And that's not for us, this is an exact figure. This is what we've written down to all judges. Please be observant of this. When you write your decisions, no more than 15 to 18 words. Last point that I wanted to make is when you deal with the news, ask them also, what can you do for them? How can you prepare them to enable their work as good as possible? And when do that, beware of the time. Beware that for them, time is of the essence. They can't wait 2 days or even 2 hours. They need to press almost 2 minutes after you rendered your decision. They need to go on and publish. So help them in doing that. And when you need to help them in doing that, you also need to have standards prepared. This is a picture of an ambulance. Could you imagine that if you needed a defibrillator and your heart had stopped working and people had to look where the defibrillator was? Oh my God, it would be a catastrophe. So what you need to do is have set structures in place, have set words that you use always, have prepared statements for the press before you actually render the decision. So when you have found the decision, you also need to work parallel consistently with how you want to phrase that before the public if there is an interesting decision to be publicized. Because think what would happen if the ambulance driver of the ambulance should actually look for the defibrillator. Don't want that. Share what you find with the public. Don't be scared. Also, when it's red, the only thing you need to see here is all the red dots. Also, when it's bad information for you, share it, because it provides the clarity. And this will be my last point. I think we work in a time where we are respectful towards our audience. And we should also expect the audience and the people to respect us and work with us respectfully. Now, this has been taken for granted, and it should still be taken for granted, but maybe we should help educate the people a little bit. Because maybe some of the values that were built in you when you were kids are not built in the kids any longer the same way. Maybe we also need to tell the public what sort of value it is that we create. So communication and clarity is also from us to them in what value we actually create. The value that we create can be put into many, many different things, but it may also comprise these statements. The court secure order, and without order there can be no growth. The courts are protection for the individual, also securing things happening from them from other individuals or other bodies. When you rise for the judge, you rise for justice. You don't rise for that specific person, you rise for justice. When a judge may not be fired or removed, it's not to secure his rights. It's to secure the citizens' rights. I think those are important messages. And what we actually did was we made a story about that, about the Danish judicial system. And who knew when you took an office as a development director for the Danish courts that you should occupy yourself being a movie maker? And who knew that being a movie maker also could be actually making cartoons? But this is what we have done. We've been making cartoons about this because we need to tell these sort of basic facts to everyone and disseminate it to everyone. It's on YouTube, you can find it there also. But I think being respectful and ask to be treated respectful and communicating with the public about what it is for sort of value that you create is part of the clarity also. Thank you very much.